what seems to be the top 3 problems that are actually actionable. Because sometimes when you think about it, you know, you kind of get analysis paralysis. Kasi ang daming problema. But what are actionable for now?
I think 3 things that we have updates on already in the work we've done in the past 1.5 years. The first is teachers. You know, our teachers could not teach because they're saddled with so many other responsibilities. When you go down to the ground to talk to teachers, they say, "Sir, we cannot teach. We're handling gulayan sa paaralan. We're doing school-based feeding program. They go to the markets. They cook.
They have
to
a lot of paperwork.
They have to weigh students to check their weights. They have to be the ones to check for 4-piece attendance, everything. So they could do everything but teach. And second is that the data that we found in our teachers is that 64% of them teaching high school did not finish the course that they're now teaching. And so how do you teach something you yourself do not understand fully well? Which aligns with the data we found in 2016, no? That there was a World Bank study that tested them based on the content knowledge of teachers on lessons that they teach themselves. Most of them scored 30% low 30%, as low as 30% in those same assessments that they administer to their students, so teachers. The second is textbooks. In our year one report, it's about 400 pages long. But the text, we found out that once we collected all of the data from DepEd, that in the past 10 years, only grade 5 and 6 students had complete textbooks for all subjects. Everyone else had a sprinkling of 1 or 2 textbooks, but everything else, none. Despite budget being allocated for it, 7 billion since 2018, only 900 million was utilized. And the third is lack of coordination. We cited in our year one report that DepEd, CHED, and TESTA, they sit in about 68 interagency bodies. Interagency Council on Antimicrobial Resistance, Design Advisory Council, Boy and Girl Scouts of the Philippines, but nothing specific to coordinating on education concerns. So those are the critical things that really need to be addressed, and we're glad that things are moving.
So to recap, that's 3 things:
Yes.
teachers, textbooks, and
Coordination,
lack of coordination.
Governance,
And under
yes.
teachers, there's 2
Yes.
subgroups,
Yes.
sub-problems, which
Yes.
is number 1, teachers are saddled with too much
Yes,
to do, and
admin
number 2,
tasks.
a lot of them are not
They need-
actually trained
Yeah,
in
they
what
need
they're
to teach
teaching.
what they studied. Yeah.
And they didn't. Okay.
Is
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is money the solution to all of this? Is a bigger budget? Because, you know, as you know, education
Yeah.
by law takes up the biggest chunk in our annual budget, and every year it's growing.
And it has been allocated. One, utilization needs to be fixed. We checked the data, and the 27 billion was unutilized just from DepEd resources alone in 2023. And then when you look at it, actually, in the past years, it has doubled. Our spending on education per student has doubled. But we've put more of our resources in higher education. Meanwhile, in countries like Vietnam, they spend the most on grades 1 to 3, which are the foundational
I'm going to
years.
go there because
Sure.
I was looking at your report. I did not read all 400 pages, but I did see some things, certain things. We spend around $11,000 per student here in the Philippines.
Cumulative.
Vietnam's, cumulatively, and Vietnam spends $13,800. So there's a $2,800 difference. Not that big according to
Yes,
EDCOM.
yes.
And yet they managed to beat Malaysians in math.
Right.
What was different with
Yeah.
Vietnam and how they spent that money, and what do we do wrong with spending the
Yeah.
money that
So
we
it's
have?
not just the amount that you spend, it's when you spend it. So they spend a lot on early childhood education and then grades 1 to 3. In all of the studies all over the world in the past decade, it shows us that if you invest in early childhood, students score higher. In fact, they scored 32 points higher in mathematics in PISA. They tend to drop out less, and they tend to achieve more later on in life. But we spend the least on early
That's a
childhood.
great point. So instill a love of learning early on, which to me as a parent makes
Yeah,
total sense.
for sure.
But tell me, the requirement for formal schooling here only starts at 5 years old. Is that
Yes.
early enough?
For kinder. So this is, I mean, it's real. It's more feasible for a country like us, no, to start at kinder. And this was, I worked on that actually when I started in the Senate in 2012, the Universal Kindergarten Education Act. We've made a lot of progress. That's a good step, but we really need to fix the early years. We don't expect everyone to attend early childhood, like 3 to 4 pre-kinder. But what we do need is nutrition, and also parents knowing what they need to do at home for their children. You know, I was talking to Ateneo faculty last week, and I asked, you're all faculty members, experts in your own field, who among you have kids, and who among you know what you need to do at home for your children between age 0 to 4? Very few raised their hands. I think it's a national concern. Parents, rich or poor, need more resources, need access to information as to what they need to do to take care of their children at home. And I think money's not just the issue here.
Because in general, I think the mentality is, yeah, well, by 5 we have to send them to school, and then that's it. The school will take care of the math, the science, the English, the everything, right?
Meron ako favorite na explanation eh. Hindi, 2 years old, baby pa yan. Di
Exactly.
Pa niya, you know, we hear that a lot. 2 years old, di pa niya kailangan mag-school.
But then also, so that's the issue with the public side. On the private side, pre-nursery, pre-kinder schools are expensive. So then a lot of parents like me are thinking, oh, is this even worth it? Is there a point to sending them so early?
Yeah, but ironically, we've had the law since 1978 saying that there should be at least 1 daycare per barangay. In 2013, there was another law that we worked on, the Early Years Act, which was supposed to universalize access to early childhood education. Each barangay is supposed to have a child development center. So whether or not you could afford it, there's actually a facility supported by government to be able to provide that.
Right, Marco. To be fair, there are certain, some they call it daycare, diba?
Yes.
Pero nagkakagulo din eh because there's no set curriculum or guidelines. The teachers kind of just do like motherly things, right? What they think is correct, right?
Yeah.
It's essentially babysitting.
Yeah.
Yes, but so there's a national early learning framework developed by the ECCD Council, but the challenge...
What happened to it?
Well, the challenge is really manpower. We did not put our money where our mouth was. You say it's universal, but when you look at it, there is not a single training program for daycare workers and teachers in the country in the past 10 years, despite us saying that's so critical. All of them, 89%, are non-permanent. Their average salary is 5,000 pesos a month, and some of them, 20%, earn 1,000 a month. I mean, what do you expect if you put so little?
All right, Mark, still talking about teachers. You mentioned earlier 64%?
64,
64%.
For high school teachers.
High school teachers, and most of them didn't even major on the subjects that they're teaching students. So for other Southeast Asian countries, is that what they do? Are teachers majoring on the subjects that they teach? That's why it's effective?
Yes, yes, of course. In education, what's important is the relationship of the teacher with the student and the teacher's relationship with the content, what he or she will teach. Because if that relationship is weak, what will you impart, no?
Right.
Which is why for high school, it tends to be universally accepted that they should specialize in content knowledge. Actually, in other countries, what they do is you need to finish, like the most successful countries, you need to be a math major and graduate in math and then take education units. What's happened to us is they learn something else and then teach something else. Actually, if you go on TikTok, we found in science, for example, 50% of our science teachers did not study sciences.
The third problem you outlined, the lack of coordination between the different agencies, wasn't that legislated before?
Actually, I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah.
So we did also ask this question to Senator Win last week.
Yeah.
Just on Friday, actually.
Yeah, just on Friday. Because EDCOM
We're
won,
suki.
okay? Because this is such a big issue,
Yeah,
and
it
I can
is.
see that this really affecting us in the
Yeah.
years to come, and possibly getting worse. So EDCOM 1 said, let's divide it into TESDA, into DepEd, and into CHED.
Yes.
Now you're telling me that...
They should have been together all along.
I mean, would them being together still, had it not been for EDCOM 1, would that have helped in terms of coordination?
No.
Okay, why not?
Because it's such a huge monster of an agency that it's so hard to keep tabs on everything because you have so many different concerns. The concerns of higher ed, like you're looking at doctorate programs and then you're looking at kindergarten programs, those are two distinct concerns. I think what EDCOM 1 also recommended in the 1990s was the creation of a National Coordinating Council on Education, which was never legislated. The mechanism by which they should coordinate after they were divided into 3 agencies did not happen.
Is that the cabinet cluster that PBBM just approved?
That we presented to the president, and we are very grateful that he saw it. So he sat there and he said after our presentation, our discussion, okay, this is so important, let's resolve this. Our problem is we don't have a system. We have things happening here and there, but it's not a system. We need to fix this. And he said that he was going to sign it immediately and issue the executive order to create this. If you saw our Year 1 report, our title was Miseducation, the Failed System of Philippine Education, because that's really the root of it. Everything else is just symptomatic to that. There is no system, and therefore we're not delivering quality education to our students.
What's this new cabinet cluster for education going to solve? Give us a real example.
Like, for example, bullying. One of the things that we highlighted in our report and was in the airwaves last week was bullying. We are the bullying capital of the world. highest prevalence of bullying
wow.
based on PISA findings for the past 2 runs since 2019.
We haven't seen that report.
Oh, I will send you.
Yes, please.
We have
Yes,
5
please.
studies from LaSalle that confirmed it, highlighted the differences. Cyberbullying is one, but actually physical bullying is the most. In DepEd, when we got the data, from 2013, the data was about 1,000 plus bullying reported cases that went all the way to the DepEd Central Office. It went up to 20,000 by 2018. Cases of bullying is the worst in the Philippines. And when we looked at it, they're relying on a guidance counselor to do the job, but actually there are no guidance counselors.
There's not enough.
There are
I read your report.
4,600
Yeah.
vacant positions of guidance counselors. And when we checked it again using CHED data, you don't have enough schools offering it. You don't have graduates actually in the past 5 years. In Regions 4B and Region 8, not a single graduate. And yet they had hundreds of vacancies. So one is under DepEd because they're the ones who are supposed to hire the guidance counselors. And then who's supposed to offer is under CHED. Then you have state universities that were funding free tuition but not offering these programs also. So it's really a system that is not working together.
So with the cabinet cluster group,
It's supposed to happen.
okay,
Because
you
one of-
can take on an issue like that,
Yes, yes.
divvy it up for the different levels.
Yeah. So one of the 2 things that I'd highlight is one, they're supposed to craft a national education and workforce development plan for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And they should align their budget and their targets year on year to this plan
Yeah.
so that there's continuity in the reforms because it will take a long time for us. There are no shortcuts to fixing the system that
Right.
has not worked for decades. The second is they're supposed to craft a human resource in education plan. So they should have spotted, or now we should spot, wala pala tayong guidance counselors, wala pala tayong daycare workers and teachers that are trained. We don't have pala experts in educational measurement. We lack SPED teachers. So all of this will be studied exhaustively and then
Right.
planned cohesively for the next 10 years so that we could invest in those people.
This is going to be even
Sean
harder.
is right. We could sit here 3 hours.
Yeah, but
And talk
at
about all
least
the
changes
issues, yes.
changes happening.
Usually, when you
That's
say
right.
you can throw money at a problem, this is
That's
not the
right.
problem that
No.
you can throw money
Yeah,
at.
yeah.
Well, thank you so
It's
much
hard
for
work.
taking the time out to share
thank you.
the truncated version, the 400-page one, your report of EDCOM II.
I'll be glad to come for a longer version.
We will definitely check back in with you
Thank
on
you.
any further developments. Thank you so much. And
Thank
the
you.
EDCOM II Executive Director, Karol Mark Yee.
Thank you.